Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? You know, when it comes to Carl Frampton, who just came off of a win over Scott Quigg, he is in a bad situation right now. Oh man, I mean a real bad situation. Because see, usually when you avoid certain fighters, you have more leverage to where it doesn't really look so blatant that you're avoiding a fighter. But when you're in the type of position that Frampton is in right now, which is his number one mandatory challenger is Guillermo Rigondeaux, and you either have to fight him next by July or give up your belt, and you elect to actually give up your belt rather than fight the pound for pound champion Guillermo Rigondeaux. Let's just put it this way. I don't really like to say that a fighter is afraid of someone, but it would be pretty damn difficult to convince fans that you're not afraid of this man if you go through lengths like that to avoid a fight with Rigo. You know, when everyone was talking about the WBA stripping Guillermo Rigo of his title, and they were talking about how wrong it was. Now, there's no doubt about it. It was wrong that they were going to strip him of his title. But actually, it turned out to work in Guillermo Rigo's favor. Why? Because when Rigo was holding the belt, it was much easier for opponents and other fighters to basically sidestep Rigo and say, I'm going to fight the other champion. I'm not about to get in the ring with that damn monster Rigo. They could say that, right? But see, now, when Rigo is no longer the champion, Rigo, he can just become the mandatory for any champion. And now he can force guys to give up the belt as soon as they get it. You see how that works? If I was Guillermo Rigondeaux, I would actually beat the champions once he gets them in the ring. And then as soon as he beats them, I would give up the belt. Give up the belt to become someone else's mandatory. So now you're forcing these guys to either fight or forfeit the belt. So when it comes to this Carl Frampton situation, I don't know if Carl Frampton's going to take this fight. He hasn't done one interview since it's been said to him that he needs to either fight Rigo or give up the belt. I haven't heard anything from Frampton talking about Guillermo Rigondeaux. I mean, Guillermo Rigo, he just recently called Carl Frampton a coward. And Carl Frampton didn't even reply. He didn't even react or respond. How do you let someone in your division call you a flat-out coward and you don't even respond to it? Boy, that says a lot about Guillermo Rigondeaux, I'm telling you right now. You know, it's sad to say this, but Guillermo Rigondeaux is starting to become the modern-day Charlie Burley. And if you guys don't know who Charlie Burley is, Charlie was one of the most gifted, talented, and most avoided fighters of all time. Fighters like Sugar Ray Robinson, Jake LaMotta, Henry Armstrong, none of these guys would get in the ring with Charlie Burley because of his skill set, how dangerous of a fighter he was. Charlie was part of a group called the Black Murderers Row. It was a term coined by a boxing writer by the name of Bud Skolberg. Matter of fact, if you guys are not too familiar with the Black Murderers Row, I made a couple videos breaking it down and talking about it. Matter of fact, I'll add the link into the description box, or I may even put it on the screen as this video is playing. But just in case you didn't watch that video and you still don't know, let me go ahead and drop the science so you guys do know what the Murderers Row is all about, or was all about. Murderers Row refers to a group of middleweight boxing contenders in the United States competing in the 1940s and 50s, primarily of an African American background. Renowned for their toughness and great boxing ability, at the time they were feared throughout the boxing world and are categorized as being the most avoided fighters of their generation. According to the boxing pundit Jim Murray, the Murderers Row were the most exclusive men's club the ring has ever known. They were so good and so feared that they had to have their own tournament and fight each other, because all of the big names like Sugar Ray Robinson, Henry Armstrong, Jake LaMotta, and the list just goes on and on and on and on. Once again, because they wouldn't fight any of these guys from the Black Murderers Row, these guys, they had to fight against each other. And let me go ahead and give you the list of fighters that were on this Murderers Row. You had Charlie Burley, Lloyd Marshall, Holman Williams, Herbert Coco Kidd, Lewis Hardwick, Jason Chase, Eddie Booker, Aaron Wade, and Burt Lytle. And Charlie Burley, by many, was considered to be the greatest fighter in the Murderers Row, the Black Murderers Row, that is. And it's so funny how history repeats itself. Because today, you have Canelo Alvarez, who's the middleweight champion, or he's supposed to be a middleweight champion, but he fights at 155, which is obviously the junior middleweight division, just 1 pound north. And Canelo Alvarez hasn't even mentioned fighters that fight at 154, such as the Charlo brothers, Jamel and Jamal Charlo, Demetrius Andrade, Julian Williams, Chris Pearson, Eric Walker. He hasn't even mentioned these guys' names. And all of these guys are action-packed fighters. Now, like I said, Canelo Alvarez, he wants no parts of these fighters. And he hasn't even mentioned these fighters' names. But I'm going to tell you where the real crime is. The real crime is the fact that the boxing reporters, they don't even put the pressure on Canelo Alvarez to fight these guys at 154. That's where the real crime is. And that right there is offensive if you ask me. Because if you are a real boxing fan, you should want Canelo Alvarez to fight the best fighters in his division or wherever he decides he wants to fight. Right now he wants to fight damn near at junior middleweight. So why is Canelo Alvarez fighting a welterweight when he has all of this talent at 154? Like I said, if the media was fair, if the fans were fair, they would be putting a lot of pressure on Canelo to not only fight Gennady Golovkin, but hell, if you're going to fight at 155, why don't you fight the best fighters at junior middleweight? That is only common sense. That is only common sense. So now we pretty much established that we have a modern day Black Murderers Row brewing right now. And the best fighter in the Murderers Row today would be who? Guillermo Rigondeaux. There is no doubt about it. Rigo is the most avoided fighter today. Hands down. Okay? It's not like the Gennady Golovkin situation where there are fighters that don't want to fight Golovkin. Like I said, Danny Jacobs, he wants no part of Golovkin. And it's unfortunate because I would love to see that fight. Billy Joe Saunders, at first he said he wanted no part of Golovkin. Now he just recently said that he may be willing to fight him in the summertime or whatever. But the point that I'm making is, with someone like a Golovkin, there may be 1 or 2 fighters that don't want to fight him. But then when you turn around, there's like 3 or 4 other fighters that are desperate to fight him, right? But when it comes to Guillermo Rigondeaux, there is no one on the top level that wants to fight Rigo. It's not like Rigo is calling out Frampton and Santa Cruz, and then he turns around and Scott Quigg or somebody, you know what I mean, is chasing him. And Rigo was like, oh no, I don't want to fight you guys, but I want to fight these guys over here. It's not like that. There is no one that wants to get in the ring with the big bad wolf, Guillermo Rigondeaux. So that's the reason why he is the #1 fighter on the Black Murderers Row. And he ranks very, very high on the coincidental list as well. So we'll see, man. We'll see what happens. We'll see what other fighter gets added on to the Black Murderers Row from the coincidental list. And, you know, hopefully these fights happen, man. Hopefully these fighters like Guillermo Rigo starts putting more pressure on these fighters to take the fight. And hopefully one day, it may just be wishful thinking, but hopefully one day the media starts to put pressure on these guys to take these fights. Instead of just putting pressure on certain fighters to take certain fights, like ESPN's Dan Rafael sending personal tweets to Carl Froch trying to urge him to take the Gennady Golovkin fight and making it seem like he's ducking. But my whole question is, how come Dan Rafael never sent these tweets to Golovkin when Golovkin didn't want to fight against Andre Ward? How come he didn't send these tweets to Canelo Alvarez? How come he's not sending these tweets to Canelo Alvarez, trying to pressure him to fight a Demetrius Andrade, a Charlo brother, or someone like that? How come they're not putting pressure on these guys? Instead, they're trying to make these fighters as irrelevant as possible. I mean, think about that, guys. Don't you think that's a little odd that no boxing reporter has ever asked Canelo Alvarez what he thinks about fighting Demetrius Andrade, the Charlo brothers? You notice that? They only want to see Canelo Alvarez fight someone like a Gennady Golovkin. And that's because of the fact that they like them both. So it's win-win for them no matter who wins the fight. But see, when a fighter on the coincidental list is involved, now things are different. Because if that fighter on the coincidental list has a chance of winning, these fans, they don't want to see the fight. They don't want to see the fight. They look at it like this. If you can't beat them, you ignore the fuck out of them and act like they don't even exist. That's what they do. But what happened to all the pride? What happened to all the warrior talk? How certain fighters are supposed to be so bold and so brave and have so much heart, right? What happened to that ideology? That's not what we're getting today. In fact, if you look at the fighters that have quit in recent years, the majority of the fighters that quit in the ring are the quote-unquote tough guys. The majority of fighters that avoid other fighters are normally quote-unquote tough guys. So you could sit over here and you could call me biased. You could call me whatever you want to call me. But you will not call me a liar. And one thing I can tell you right now, and you can watch all my videos, which will corroborate and prove everything that I'm telling you right now, I don't never sit over here and make excuses why this guy shouldn't fight that guy, right? Like, for example, if you were to tell me, if you were to say, Dante, you like Nicholas Walters, you're just biased towards Nicholas Walters, you've never seen me make a video saying Lomachenko doesn't deserve to fight Nicholas Walters. I don't want to see that fight. That's a garbage fight. Lomachenko, he needs to beat Orlando Salido because he hasn't beat him. He got Salido problems. He don't need to be fighting against Nicholas Walters. You never hear me talk like that. No matter who I think is going to win the fight, I still want to see it. I've told you guys on numerous occasions, I believe that if Kovalev fought against Adonis Stevenson, I believe Kovalev would win that fight. But guess what? I still want to watch the fight. I have never made a video saying Kovalev doesn't deserve to fight against, Adonis Stevens because of this, because of that, right? Kovalev is a racist, so that's a reason why he shouldn't fight against Adonis. I've never said anything like that. But this is what you guys say. This is what you guys do. You guys constantly try to deflect. That's what you do. If Demetrius Andrade calls out Canelo Alvarez, what do I see in the comment section? Oh, fuck Demetrius Andrade. Racial slurs and shit. He don't deserve them. They're getting mad at this man for doing his job. You getting mad at Demetrius Andrade just for being a warrior and wanting to fight the best fighters? This is what you claim you like. Oh, but when it's on a coincidental list, they don't have that privilege to call out fighters that are at the top of the division, right? When you're on the Black Murderers roll, you need permission to call out a fighter that has his Hope card, has his Hope insurance. We know what time it is. We know what time it is. I mean, what kind of fan sits here and says he doesn't want to see the best fighters fight the best. What kind of fan says something like that? You will never hear me making these ridiculous ass excuses over money, over who I like and who I don't like, making excuses why two undefeated guys should not fight against each other. Only decafs do that shit. Only decafs. Dumb, casual ass fans. And that definition defines a range of different type of boxing fans. From the most ignorant to the new to the racist, so on and so forth. These are the only type of fans that will sit here and say, I don't want to see that fight. Demetrius Andrade is calling out Canelo. Fuck Andrade. All of a sudden, just because Demetrius Andrade called out Canelo, all of a sudden he goes to the top of the coincidental list. You see how that works? Wasn't nobody talking about Demetrius Andrade, not in a negative way, until he called out someone like Canelo Alvarez. This is how it works, guys. This is how it works. You are not hated until you become a threat to a fighter that they like, to a fighter that has his hope insurance. That's when these fighters become a threat. If Andre Ward would have never called out Gennady Golovkin, no one would be talking all this, you inactive bitch, fuck that SOB, and fuck that N-word this and this and that and all this kind of shit. That's why they're saying that shit, because once he became a threat to one of their favorite fighters, then they start letting the fireworks and the bombs go. Right? Because they still fucking butthurt thinking about when Nonito Donaire lost to Guillermo Rigo. They still hurt when it comes to their favorite fighters, like Donaire getting knocked out by Nicholas Walters. They're hurt when it comes to that kind of stuff. And you know what they're saying? When they look at Golovkin, when they look at Canelo Alvarez, they're saying, never again. Never again are we going to even let our fighters get close to getting in the ring with a guy who is a threat on the coincidental list. Man, I know how these guys think, man. I understand the psychology of a decaf. I'm telling you, man. You could talk to me for fucking 5 seconds. And after that 5 seconds, I will damn near know everything that's going to come out your mouth. Because decafs, they are all repetitive with what they say. It's all defaulted emotional talking points. I mean, imagine if you were going to a job interview and you didn't know how to act, right? And someone tried to help you, so he gave you a script of what to say, how to answer certain questions, right? And you go to that job interview, all you have is that script. All of a sudden, when you go to the job interview, the guy at the job is asking you all types of questions that's not on your script. So now you don't know how to answer the questions because why? You prepared for questions that you already knew. That is what you call defaulted talking points. This is what decafs use. They use these defaulted talking points, and once you hit their ass with some logic that they didn't anticipate, they didn't expect, they don't really know how to reply. So that's when they start to deflect and they just come back with some fuck you, bitch, racial slurs, and anything else that has absolutely nothing to do with the actual topic. This is what decafs do. And when I say decafs, you have to understand something. When I talk about what's being said or what's being typed in the comment section, you guys have to understand something. Everything that we see on blogs, online, comment sections, all of that stuff is a reflection of what we hear or see on boxing websites from writers, what we hear from the king of the decafs like Jim Lampley and everyone else that's on that level. So if you're thinking this is just people online with these beliefs and thoughts, then you're being extremely naive. Why do you think HBO employees decided to put Gennady Golovkin on a pay-per-view card against David Lemieux? You know why? Because those employees over there, they were listening to so many decafs talk about how big of a star Golovkin is and he's going to replace Floyd Mayweather, etc., etc., etc. They were reading comments. They were hearing so many decafs say this stuff that some of the employees at HBO, they actually bought the hype. And then they said, yeah, you know what? They're right. This guy is a big star. Put his ass on pay-per-view and Golovkin completely bombed. And what happened to the employee that thought it was a great idea to listen to the decafs and put this guy on pay-per-view to fight against Golovkin? You know what happened to him? His ass got fired because he was listening to these damn decafs in the comment section, on the streets, and everywhere else. So don't be so damn naive to think that the idiots in the comment section is just a small group of boxing fans. No. These people in the comment section are the people that you see and watch every day. That's all I got for now. I'm on to the next one.